another one of like the sneakiest momentum killers is what I'm going to call this at this point, that often goes unnoticed by Christians, by non-Christians alike. I call this premature dopamine.
Sometimes as fathers, husbands, fathers, but specifically fathers, sometimes we have a tendency to inadvertently be God to our kids.
Yeah.
And we're not.
Yep. And that goes back to fearful collaboration, because some people might be prone to invite them early because they either don't want to build by themselves, or they have their insecurities that they feel like will be compensated for by somebody else rather than relying on the grace of God. Welcome to another episode of Biblical Bifocal. I am your host, Winston, but you can call me Winnie. And over the last, I would say probably a week, I feel like I've been having some writer's block. I haven't really known what to talk about really, because there's just been a lot of things on my plate. And I'm grateful to God that there's a lot of things on my plate, because I prayed for situations that I find myself in right now. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna cap. It's been kicking my butt. But yeah, I feel like I finally got something that is worth sharing. And it's something that I could put into practice as well. So I'm excited to talk to you guys about it. One of the things that I would really, really want to stress is anything that I'm talking about, any message that I'm putting out is resonating in a certain sense, lean into that, right? It's not just, I'm not just a random person on the internet. I might be to you, but I'm a man, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a man of God, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an employee as well. I'm a lot of things, and what I've noticed is that God can use anybody to get a message to anybody. He used a raven to give sustenance to Elijah. He used a donkey to send a message, to a prophet. God said that He'll make the rocks cry out if He needs to. So just don't despise the package that the message is coming in. Just because you might not like the package. Another thing that I'll encourage you to do, go ahead and like and subscribe. Continue to share the message with people that you think would benefit from this message. There's a revival happening right now in the kingdom of God. And I know what side I want my family to be on. And that's not going to happen unless we are disseminating a message on Jesus Christ. 100 years from now, 200 years from now, 300 years from now, your business podcast is not going to be relevant. You know what I'm saying? 300 years from now, your podcast on the celebrity drama is not going to be relevant. What's going to be relevant is how you are equipping the saints to move forward with the word of God, to move forward with biblical principles, with godly principles, and equip them with the character that is necessary to move on. And that's what we aim to do on this channel, right? The whole purpose of this channel is to present a practical biblical perspective to prevalent social issues. So if you're rocking with that, please tune in every Tuesday. Subscribe, share the stuff, follow us on Instagram. If you want to support the channel, the link is in the description, thedrivenyou.com. We have some merch dropping soon. All right. Without further ado, one of the craziest things that I notice with Christian entrepreneurs, with chosen people, with people that are called, with people that have a purpose, a God-given calling, some skill set, right? And they are really good at what they do. This message isn't for average people. You're probably watching this message because you're good, you're called, you're chosen. You are specifically targeted to do something important. Now, what I've noticed with you and me, because I'm in the same exact demographic too, is our momentum dies so fast. It's God shoots it into us and we get this fire in us. And for some reason, it's I'll just talk about myself. I'll tell myself, if I can't get it done in 3 to 4 weeks after, he's downloaded it to me initially, for some reason, man, that momentum just tapers off. And what I've found through studying the word is I found the reason why. I think that I've nailed it down to a couple things that are killing our momentum, like biblical things that are killing our momentum. And once again, it's not enough to just know what not to do. We got to know what to do too. So that's why we're going to dive into the word today to kind of unpack why chosen people lose their momentum. What's actually happening there? Okay. So now the first thing that comes to mind initially, right, is what I've coined a fearful collaboration. Okay. The thing about collaboration is it's God-given. Like, collaboration is really, really important to God. It's so important to God that God has been in collaboration since the beginning of time. God even said in Genesis, he said, let us make man in our image. That's collaboration. Even after that, God then said to him, to himself, right? God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. He said, it is not good for man to be alone. So God created us with this interdependency. God created us with this God-given need for dependence, for this God-given need for collaboration. But now here's the thing, like anything that God creates, Satan is always going to try and pervert it. See, now this is the general theme of everything that I'm going to talk about today. With everything God creates, Satan will try and pervert. With everything God creates, Satan will try and pervert. So Satan now has come in and tried to pervert collaboration. Instead of collaboration being born out of this interdependence that God has built into us, collaboration is now born out of fear. Collaboration is now born out of clout chasing. Collaboration is now born out of FOMO. And that's what we kind of want to attack today. So we can cue the text at this point, right? If we jump to Exodus 4:10-16, I want to read you guys something real quick. I got it written down here. So just keep in mind, this exact same feeling that I was just talking about, this exact same feeling was in the heart and minds of one of the greatest biblical patriarchs in biblical history, right? Like these were the feelings that he was experiencing when he was also dealing with this thing that we call sin, that creates these feelings of inadequacy, that creates these feelings of not enough, that creates this fear in our hearts as well. If you are feeling this as well, if you find yourself in this situation, you are in good company, because so did our boy Moses. Cue the text. Verse 10, it says, "But Moses said to the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, either in the past or since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and of tongue. Then the Lord said to him, Who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth, and I will teach you what you shall say. But then Moses said, O my Lord, please send someone else, anyone else. Then the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, Is there not Aaron, your brother, the Levite? I know that he can speak well. Behold, he is coming out to meet you, and when he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. You shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I will be your mouth, and I will be with your mouth and his mouth, and I will teach you both what to do. He shall speak for you to the people, and he shall be your mouth, and you shall be as a God to him." People, please listen. This is one of the first examples of what I call a fearful collaboration. See, what happens here is Moses and Aaron are about to collaborate, right? God calls Moses to this great work of, hey, you're going to go free my people from Egypt at this point. Moses, shaking in his boots, because he has a stutter and because he comes up with a couple different reasons why he can't do X, right? God says, I'm able to do this for you. It's so funny, actually, because the first thing that God does is, like, he asks him to, like, throw down his staff, right? Like, God asks him, what's in your hands, right? All he had in his hands was a shepherd's staff, and God was able to show him how he can use that shepherd's staff in different situations. God then tells him, put your hand into your cloak. He puts his hand into his cloak, pulls it out, and it's leprous. Puts it back in, God tells him, puts it back in, takes it back out, and it's fully healed. Which tells me that if Moses was locked in and really understood who he was talking to, God could have probably healed that speech impediment that Moses was so self-conscious about. The same way that God healed the leprous hand, God probably could have healed that speech impediment as well. Or God could have used it because it was in Moses' hand. See, like that's the part that people miss about that passage. Like, God can either use exactly what you have as you have it and transform it into something that is beneficial for his work, or God can heal it. Either way, he's going to use it. So with that speech impediment, Moses should have just given that to God. But instead, because he was fearful, he asked God to take this mantle, take this responsibility, take it all away from him, and just give it to somebody else. And out of that came a collaboration with Aaron. Now, why doesn't this work, right? Like, why is this a problem? Well, like, quite frankly, these relationships just never really work out, right? Like, it's kind of unfortunate, right? Because we do this a lot in our lives too, like where we try and make these connections for different things, even though we know for a fact that God gave us the play. So we should be the ones running the play. But we try and pull other people in when we feel like we don't have enough to accomplish what we are called to accomplish. What usually happens to called, driven people is that the people that you end up collaborating with aren't as called, aren't as driven, and aren't as character-based as you are. And we see that, we see that here with Aaron, right? We see that with Aaron. So like, keeping it biblical, we got Exodus 32, where Aaron creates a golden calf because he gets pressured by the people. We got Numbers 12, where Aaron and Miriam is Aaron's sister, Moses and Aaron's sister, who, by the way, she's only in a position of leadership. Both of these people, Aaron and Miriam, are only in positions of leadership because of their association with Moses, right? Because Moses kind of elevated them to that status. We see them openly opposing Moses because of Moses's Cushite wife, right? So like, there's like culture, I think like she was like dark skin or something, and for whatever reason I don't think they were messing with that. But like, we see that in Numbers 12, and then in Numbers 20 we see Aaron and Moses, the leadership team, like the lead priest and the leader of this people right now. They don't listen to God, right? God tells them to strike the rock once. Moses ends up striking it twice for whatever reason. Him and Aaron, whatever happened in that interaction in Numbers 20, it ends up actually keeping them from the promised land. Like Moses' collaboration with Aaron ends up actually keeping Moses from the promised land. And it's saddening, and it's very informative at the same time. Not all collaborations are good collaborations. Cookies and milk, you know what I'm saying? Apple pie and ice cream. Kendrick and J. Cole, great collaborations. Moses and Aaron, probably not. And what I'm submitting to you guys is sometimes the fear of not being enough, or the inadequacy that we might feel, propels us into some of these fearful collaborations that ultimately kill our momentum and derail us from actually achieving purpose. I want us to be careful of a lot of these fearful collaborations. You feel me?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Because I've literally never heard anybody like dunk on Aaron like that.
Yeah.
Right?
But he deserves it, right?
Dude, I don't know. I got to think about it.
Okay.
I got to think about it. Man, maybe. But okay, so I always thought that Aaron, I can't think of a better word, so I'm gonna say the remedial version of it. That he complimented Moses' weakness. But you're saying not really. You're saying, if I'm catching you, what you're putting down, you're saying if Moses would have took those weaknesses to God, then God could have healed those weaknesses, definitely use those weaknesses.
Yes. Yes. What I'm saying is that Aaron's Moses's weaknesses were more insecurities than actual weaknesses.
Got it.
And that if he would have taken those insecurities to God, God would have used them or transformed them. But by inviting somebody else into the situation, he essentially removed, he essentially placed Aaron's ability to speak over God's ability to use Moses not being able to speak.
Got you.
And that creates an idol. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh. It does.
It does. So he created an idol out of Aaron rather than what it was actually supposed to be, which is a collaboration.
So like Aaron was basically Moses' scapegoat, kind of, sort of.
In the department of being able to like speak, in the department of being able to lead, like you can tell that Moses didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And he tried to push that off onto Aaron, and God was like, fine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it wasn't God. Yeah, it wasn't it definitely wasn't a move from God where it's like, I have anointed Aaron to be your mouthpiece.
Yes.
He was just like, okay.
It was like, you really want to do this? Like, you really want him here? Okay. Isn't your brother coming? Like, okay, he'll be happy to see you. Go to him, go talk. I'll be with him the same way I'll be with you, but you will be like a God to him. So it wasn't like I'm going to elevate, like it wasn't like I'm going to call you and Aaron. It's like, no, I called you. But if you really want this dude to tag along, you're going to be like a God to him, but he can tag along. And what we see is, because of his association with Moses, he elevates Aaron's position to something that it never should have even been.
I want to hear the rest of your points, and audience, I literally don't know what his next points are. So we're all figuring it out together. But I want to hear what your next couple of points are, because man, Moses has a history of having trouble with not taking full responsibility. Like he's got this delegation problem. He really, really does. So it's either he wants to do it all himself, or he doesn't know when to spread the wealth for the things that doesn't matter. I'm pulling this off of my head, so I'm sure the numbers are going to be wrong. But when they were rocking and rolling in Israel, and everybody was coming to Moses with their problems and stuff like that, and he was literally being counseled all day for stuff that just don't matter. It was his father-in-law.
Jethro.
Was it Jethro?
Yep.
Thank God. Okay. Yeah. I was nervous. Okay, and it was Jethro that was like, "Hey, you're gonna kill yourself handling stuff that you don't necessarily need to." So like Jethro was the one who gave him the orders to, you can divide all of this up.
Exactly.
Raise up people, let them handle the menial task, and you go on. So like I said all that to say that Moses generally had a problem with collaboration.
And it wasn't that he sucked at collaboration. It was probably, once again, I'm gonna tie it back to his insecurities.
Okay.
Right. Like we have a guy that never wanted to lead.
Right.
We have a guy that went from the palace to literally working as like a shepherd, like a steward, right? And with Jethro's flock, right? We have a guy that's insecure about his ability to speak. We have a guy that's brave and willing to take on a challenge, but at the same time, very, very troubled and dealing with anger issues, right? Like this is a guy that is operating so far outside of his comfort zone already. It only makes sense. It only makes sense that like those insecurities are what is the continual factor and the thing that continues to pop up in his life and in his ministry. Like when we think about his initial call, like first of all, when we think about his birth, right, being raised Egyptian but actually being an Israelite,
Yep.
fully out of place, never really understanding his identity, never really feeling comfortable in his own like environment, right? Then running away, living in Midian, still being an outsider, right? Then finally he's back with his people, but now he's not really with his people. You know, everybody's still looking at him, right? Like this is a guy that literally went to go talk to God for 30 days and like disappeared from his people. Like he was never integrated back into his people. So it only makes sense that he's just uncomfortable in his role, in his skin, and just continues to feel those insecurities. So that's what I'll give him, and that's what I have like empathy for Moses.
I never really yeah, I agree. I never really understood the weight of Moses's call until like I started leading.
Oh my goodness, bro. You telling me.
You
telling me. I'd be finding it hard to lead my wife and my 2 kids, bro, let alone 2 million people that are just obstinate and just don't listen. Goodness gracious. Yeah.
I'm gonna let you get to these other points, but dude, we can talk about that all
that
day.
Could be a whole nother, and I'm tearing up right now, but yeah, that could be a whole nother thing for real. But okay. All right. So another one of like the sneakiest momentum killers is what I'm going to call this at this point, that often goes unnoticed by Christians, by non-Christians alike. I call this premature dopamine. Premature dopamine. Okay. So dopamine is it's what's it called? It's a neurotransmitter in the brain, right? So it essentially controls like your reward system. It's like your brain's reward system, right? So every time you complete a task, a little bit of like dopamine is released. It makes you feel good. It drives you towards repeated actions, and it drives you towards like it rewards you essentially, right? It's God-given. This is something that is baked into our anatomy, right? But once again, Satan's whole plot is to pervert the good things that are given by God. Now, one of the things that I've noticed for called people, for people that are integrous, for people that are determined, for people that when they speak, other people know that it's going to be accomplished, is that we announce our progress, and because people know our character, that we're going to achieve this thing, we actually, they respond in a way that gives us that dopamine hit prior to us actually accomplishing the task. So now that we have that spike of dopamine, which should ideally drive us forward in actually completing a task, because we've already completed it, but because we've already gotten the dopamine without actually completing the task, we completely lose momentum and lose motivation to accomplish the task. It's called premature dopamine, premature dopamization, if that could be a thing. And like I see this exact same thing show up. It's a very simple trick, right? I see this exact same phenomena show up in the early church. I was reading 2 Corinthians the other day, and when I saw it, I'm like, whoa, like it blew my mind, right? So 2 Corinthians 2 Corinthians 8, 10 to 11, it says, Paul writes, "Here is my judgment about what is best for you in this matter. Last year, you were the first not only to give, but also to have a desire to do so. Now finish the work so that your eager willingness to do it may be matched by your completion of it according to your means." So like, notice here, Paul is emphasizing completion and not just the initial enthusiasm, right? Like the Corinthian church experienced this premature dopamine by announcing like, yo, we're going to give, we're going to support other churches, we're going to do all of this stuff. And then they fell off. Like they got praised for it, and then they actually never did it. And Paul actually had to remind them like, hey, listen, y'all said you were going to do this thing last year. Let your eagerness in announcing it now be matched by your actual completion of it. And that's the exact same advice that I want to give you guys. Like, let your eagerness in announcing that you're going to do this thing be matched in your ability to execute and actually complete this thing to the end, right? This completion this lack of completion, rather, it robs us of actual like purpose fulfillment, right? Like as believers today, like we are given God-given works that we are supposed to execute every single day. Like God is downloading projects, ideas, ministries, work into our minds and our hearts and our lives that we are supposed to be executing. This premature dopamine is a thief in the night that Satan has used to manipulate this God-given receptor, this God-given neurotransmitter in our brain, and now take us away from the idea of what it was supposed to be for, which is to drive us to accomplish tasks. It's now pulling us away from accomplishing tasks and killing our momentum. What I want to submit to you guys, again, is to fight against this premature dopamine spike that occurs in your brain. Now, one of the ways that I've noticed, like one of the practical ways that I've noticed to do this is Proverbs 14:23. It tells us that in all toil there is profit, but mere talk tends only to poverty. How do I put this? Work was not a product of the fall, right? So work was there before the fall. Like work was there in Genesis 1 and 2 when everything was still perfect. So just seeing work as something that is negative is unbiblical. Hard work to eat, that was a product of the fall, right? But work in itself is not a product of the fall. Also, just don't talk about it, right? Like this is another very practical thing that you could do. Just be quiet about it, right? Keep it to yourself. Like my mom always used to say, like, keep the stuff close to your chest. Don't tell nobody until you've accomplished it. I used to think that was steeped in fear. I used to think that was something that, you don't want anybody to ruin the thing that you're working on, so you want to keep your seeds close to your chest. Well, maybe reinterpreted, now what it actually is keep it close to your chest so that you continue to have the momentum to complete it. And then when you complete it, then you announce it, then you get that dopamine spike to reward yourself for it. But if you get that dopamine spike early, you're less likely to accomplish the task. You feel me?
I have two things.
Yes, sir.
Thing number one is, what would you say to the person that's like, if they want to be super biblical, is like, oh man, I'm scouting the land. I'm putting out fillers to see if this thing really has legs. So they ask their whoever, they put it out on social media. So they can kind of look like the same thing.
Yeah.
So what would you say to that?
I would say they can kind of look like the same thing, but they're not the same thing.
Yes.
Right. So it's like one's different to like put out a feeler, like do your market research. And then there's another, like, I'll give you a very practical example. Like one of the things that I wanted to do this year that I'm still working on is I wanted to learn the piano. Right. So, like I learned a few songs and I told a bunch of people like, yo, I'm going to learn the piano this year. Like I'm learning the piano, and I'm not going to lie. I got some pats on the back from me like, oh yeah, good job. Like that's dope. You know what I'm saying? Like I could play a song or two, but like I haven't really been locked in since maybe the first month of January when, I told everybody in my circle that I was going to learn the piano because I already got the dopamine spike. I'm not even going to lie. Right. What would have been probably more effective is if I asked like, hey, do you have any songs that you might want me to learn on the piano? Do you have any songs that you might want, to challenge me to play on the piano? At that point, I'm still putting out the feelers, right? Like I'm still like keeping my community engaged, letting them know the plans that I have, but you kind of tell the nuance difference there. Like I'm putting it out, asking for suggestions rather than asserting that I'm going to do this thing. And because my character, you're going to also work off of that assertion that, yeah, I definitely think you're going to accomplish it. Therefore, here's your dopamine. Thank you for the dopamine. No, I'm actually not going to accomplish it. You know what I'm saying?
Second thing, and yeah, no, that was really good. And dude, okay, but you're selling yourself short though. I mean, you coming along on this piano.
I know, I can do a little 1 and 2 on the keys, but yeah, I still got a little bit to go, but yeah, I'm working on it.
Okay.
I promise.
Okay. So the second thing is the great prophet Rick Rubin.
Okay, which one is that?
He is co-founder of Def Jam.
Okay. Okay.
Let's see, Beastie Boys, white guy, big
Okay.
beard. Produced probably the audience would most know him from 99 Problems.
Oh, well, okay.
Jay-Z.
Jay-Z, yep.
You remember? Well, okay. Anyway, Rick Rubin, just a genius. He has this book. I forget the name. It's The Art of Creativity or something like that. Really, really good. One of the things he said in that book changed my whole life because I'm just a creative by nature. And creatives by nature, we are fiends for the premature dopamine hit. We just are. And he acknowledges that he has this thought. He says, I don't actually ask anybody into a collaboration or get their point of view or what they think about something until it's like 90% done. Because if I ask them in too early, I'm going to be really, really influenced by everybody else's opinion.
Interesting.
And like, that's all it is. It's just an opinion.
Yep.
So if I take in so many people's opinion, by the time it gets to the finish line, like it doesn't even look like the thing that I thought it was going to be anymore. So he invites people in for the tweaks, not the actual formation of it. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
that's good. What do you think about that?
No, I wholeheartedly agree, because I think that a lot of people, if you invite them in too early, like they don't know the information that you have. Like if God speaks to you about something, if you have like a unique perspective about something, it takes more time to fill them in on that.
Yes.
And they'll likely never get it because most of it is lived experience as well. They'll likely never get it. So it makes no sense for you to try and paint a picture for somebody that doesn't have the same lens as you. If they're seeing through a green lens and you're seeing through a red lens, you're more likely just painting a picture and then putting that picture in front of them for tweaks, for whatever, rather than inviting them to paint with you, because they're gonna mess up with different colors and all that.
Yeah, and then like if you invite them in too early, it kind of seems like a hey, let's build this together thing, which it ain't.
That part, yeah, and that goes back to fearful collaboration, because some people might be prone to invite them early because they either don't want to build by themselves, or they have their insecurities that they feel like will be compensated for by somebody else rather than relying on the grace of God, like Paul talks about.
I think that you're really good in the sense of like, even when we talk about stuff, you were like, hey G, I have this idea, and you'll let me know where you're at in the idea and like what aspect you like my input on.
Yeah. And
that kind of gives me clarity too, on like where to hone in and where to suggest.
Facts.
Because like, I mean, dude, you ask me about anything, I can take the whole thing and make it a thing.
Anybody can. Anybody can. That's why, like, you got to put parameters on like your questioning. Like, you're not gonna just give something even to ChatGPT. Like, you're not just gonna give something to ChatGPT and ask it to do it in its entirety. You're gonna give it, parameters to work on, right?
That's good.
At least you're supposed to, at least. And yeah, it's the same exact thing with collaborating with anybody. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
it's good.
Okay, I have bread in the oven that I completely forgot about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I gotta grab that real quick. Give us 1 second.
Ladies and gentlemen, why Winston goes and gets that bread? Why he goes and gets that bread? Do us a favor and number one, subscribe. Because do you know that like 75% of the people that actually watch this are like not subscribed at all? And think about it, man. When was the last time that you actually subscribed to anything? So for 2025, man, let's see. Ooh, thank you, Holy Spirit. Let's see if we can get 30 new subscribers from this video. And each new subscription on the next episode, Winnie have no idea that I'm doing this. On the next video, Winnie is gonna shout y'all out for subscribing, and man, this community is gonna grow together. So maybe the bread's back from the oven. He doesn't know, so he'll see this when y'all see.
Okay. This is good. This is good. Where was I?
The people really want to know, before you go into whatever you were going into, what kind of bread is it?
It's sweet bread. So Trinidadian sweet bread. Have you ever had it?
Never.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna put you on. I'm gonna change your life, big guy. I'm gonna change your life tonight.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Trinidadian sweet bread with a little bit of butter. Man, you might move in. I'm not gonna hold you.
All right. Let's wrap this episode up.
Yeah. Let's get through this right thing. Okay. So listen. Another very sneaky momentum killer. This one I still struggle with on a daily basis. Not gonna lie. It's the difference between prioritizing consistency over constancy. There's a slight nuance between those two words that a lot of people tend to overlook. I'm gonna just read you the definition so you don't think that I'm making this up. This is like actual definitions, right? So consistency is reliably repeating the same actions with unchanging outputs over a period of time. So consistency is reliably repeating the same actions with unchanging outputs over a period of time. Constancy is an unwavering commitment over a period of time, even if the output fluctuates. Once again, slight semantic difference here, but for chosen people, for people that are called to works that are greater than them, listen, this makes all the difference. So I was reading Nehemiah the other day, right? And
wait a minute, how do you say that again?
Nehemiah.
Is that really how you say it?
That's how I say it.
Dude, this whole time I say Nehemiah, but I'm just a regular black dude from Texas.
You might be right. I don't got no formal biblical training, and I was raised in African churches my whole life, so I don't know how to say a lot of words. So
that's crazy. I say Nehemiah. Okay. I'm sorry.
No, you guys. So I was reading Nehemiah the other day, and for those that don't know, like if you're ever thinking about starting a project, Ezra and Nehemiah are probably like two Proverbs, Ezra and Nehemiah, like really good books to like read, right? Just to understand the thought process of one, wisdom, and then what it takes to like start works that are bigger than you, and how to scale it, right? So just quick recap: Nehemiah was the cupbearer to the king of Persia. This is after Israel has conquered, Jerusalem has been tore down and all that. So Nehemiah is sad because all this is happening. He goes to the king, and the king notices that he's sad, and he asks, can I go back and rebuild some of the land that my fathers lived on? And the king was like, yeah, how long is it going to take? Nehemiah gives him a time period, and he's like, yeah, go for it. Here's a letter for your passage. Here's some timber. Go do the work that you feel like you need to do to feel better. So this work is essentially rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, right? And now with that in mind, let's read. And this is an important part as well. There were enemies around them as well. So not everybody is really messing with the Israelites right now. So as they're doing this work, like as they're building these walls back up, they actually start off really, really hot. Like they get some really good momentum. Very shortly, I believe in chapter 3 or maybe 4, it talks about how, they've already built it halfway up already in like a very short amount of time. Now jump into chapter 4, verse 15, right? So it says, now when the enemies heard that we knew about their plot against us and that God had frustrated their plan, we all returned to the wall, each one of us to his work. From that day on, half my servants carried on the work, while the other half held the spears, shields, bows, and breastplates. And the captains were behind the whole house of Judah. Those who were rebuilding the wall and those who carried burdens loaded themselves, so that everyone worked with one hand and held a weapon with the other. Every builder had his sword secured at his side as he built, and the one who sounded the trumpet stood at my side. Now, what's really, really important to note here, right, is that like prior to this threat that Nehemiah faced, everybody was working full speed. Like progress was done. Everybody was using both their hands to work. Progress was like going towards this, right? Now, when the threat occurred, there were two options. There were two scenarios that Nehemiah could have taken. And I'm so glad that he chose the second one, because this just gives us, this is why I love the Bible. It just gives us such like a beautiful framework to follow, right? So Nehemiah could have stopped. Hey, everybody stop working. Let's go strap up. Let's go kill these people. Let's go fight against these enemies, fully defeat them, fully do what we need to do, and then we can resume our work. He could have done that. But instead, Nehemiah said, you know what? Half of y'all strap up. The other half strap up, but still keep working. We see production essentially slowing down from 100% to half of a half, to a quarter, right? Because half of the people were working with half of their hands. So a half of a half. So production went from 100% to 25%, but it kept going. And that's the really, really important piece that we need to grab. It wasn't consistent, but it was constant. Keep in mind, Constancy said, we are going to do this every single day. Even if I don't have 100% to give every day, I'm going to show up. Consistency says, if I don't have 100% to give, if I don't have an amount that I can commit to, I'm going to stop the work. And what that does, believe it or not, is it completely kills momentum. The thing about momentum is not in huge jumps. Momentum is incremental. So if you take lapses, you stop the momentum. And I really, really love the fact that Nehemiah did not allow his momentum to stop when he faced this specific challenge. Now, if you've been rocking with me for a while, I don't really have to like deep dive on this topic, but for those that are new to the channel, please go ahead and like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff, comment, leave your thoughts as well. And I'm going to go into this for you. And all I ask is that you like and subscribe because of it. You are a finite resource. You are a finite resource that has tons of other things that you are supposed to be pouring into, right? You likely have children. You likely have a job. You likely have ministries. You likely have, like kids. And you have yourself, right? I'm a brother, I'm a husband, I'm a son, I'm a father, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an employee, I'm an employer in a sense. Like I have a lot of things going on. I will never be able to pour into those 100%. I'll never be able to give all those things 100% of my energy. Like math tells me that doesn't work, right? Also, I'm never going to be able to pour into those evenly. Math tells me if I have 10 things to pour into, giving 10% to each of those things still falls below the bar. If I give 10% of myself to being a parent, I'm going to be a crappy parent. You feel me? If I give 10% of myself to being a husband, I'm going to be a crappy husband. So math tells me that just blindly averaging does not work either. What does work is prioritizing rhythms, understanding when to pull back from certain things and when to pour into certain things. And when you pull back from certain things, what process am I going to put in place? What scaffolding am I going to put in place? How am I going to make sure that this thing does not come crumbling down when I have to pull my energy from it to go pour into something that is more timely in this specific season of my life? The Bible talks about God has made times and seasons, right? Like He knows these times and seasons. We are operating in times and seasons. There's going to be instances in your life, times and seasons, where you are going to have to pull back from certain things to pour into other things. And what I would love you to focus on is that when you have to pull back, you don't fully stop. You keep your momentum by incrementally working towards it rather than fully stopping and then coming back with a full burst of energy. Consistently good is always going to beat occasionally great. I ran a marathon last week. I told you about that, right?
Did you really?
The Publix half.
Oh, okay.
The Publix half marathon down by the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I ran that half marathon.
How'd you do?
I think I did okay. I averaged a 10 minute pace. So I came in at like 2 hours and 13 minutes.
Nothing to sneeze at.
Nah, man, my legs were shot afterwards. I gave it my all. I felt myself pushing. And the lesson that I learned in that, I learned a lot of lessons, by the way. Like one of them is just turn off your brain and keep moving. But there were people that would pass me when we were going, because it's very hilly. So they would sprint down the hills, right? But then I would pass them going back up the hills. And unfortunately for them, there were more uphill situations than downhill situations. So I just kept telling myself, consistently good is better than occasionally great. Consistently good is better than occasionally great. And I was just chugging at my pace. Boom, 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 boom. And what I noticed is I would pass a lot of the people that had passed me in a former season, right? One of the things to keep in mind is like, you're not in competition with anybody else. So it's not like my goal out there was to beat anybody. My goal was to beat a specific time. But what I noticed was sprinting, stopping and walking, sprinting, stopping and walking, sprinting, stopping and walking. That ain't it. That is not the way to accomplish a specific goal. The idea is that you want to be able to be constant in your delivery. You want to keep going, even if you have to slow down a little bit, but you're not doing this back and forth cycle of sprint, fall off and stop, sprint, fall off and stop, that you are consistently moving towards your goal.
Man, that's the cheat code right there.
There it is.
That's the cheat code right there, because, and that's how you win in life. And the trick is to, most people who are more talented, more capable, more all of this good stuff, they'll disqualify themselves because they have this sense of perfectionism. If it's not like the thing that I envision in my head like that all the time, then I got to go back, recalibrate it, and whatever the case, and they stop momentum.
Yep.
One thing that a lot of sports people do, one thing that some great leaders that I've been under, one thing that they would constantly say is protect the momentum. And I love that analogy that you just gave about the running and stuff like that, because it's so true, man. We'll be running our race in life and we'll see somebody that passes us and we automatically feel oh man, I got to speed up to catch up. And we'll burn ourselves out and we'll start running our race to try to go catch the person that, like you said, that will probably pass if we just keep our own pace.
Keep the pace.
Man, that's good. Did you just make that up?
I did. I found it in Nehemiah, actually. And like, I knew that we talked about like this concept of like constantly versus consistency.
Yeah.
And when I saw it in Nehemiah, I was like, there's no way that's actually like a thing. And I mean, there it is. Like, I just read and I try and make it practical, like everything that I see.
It's good.
And that's what came out of it. So yeah, I'm thankful to God. And like, here's like the major takeaway from like this whole thing, right? Is like, you're called for a reason. God, if you're called, you're also going to be equipped. So you need to be ready to go out there feeling equipped, even if you don't feel equipped. You need to trust that if God is calling you to a work, He is going to give you the facilities to accomplish this thing in real time. You don't want to slow your momentum down. You don't want to kill your momentum. You want to keep striving towards that ultimate goal that God has called you to do, because you are chosen. You are talented. You are able. You are going to succeed if you keep going. Yeah, man. That's if you don't believe me, but Gerald, tell him.
No.
Tell him.
Listen.
Tell him.
What do you want me to tell them?
Tell them that they are talented.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are talented. You are capable. Everything that God puts in you, He didn't put that stuff in you for that stuff to die with you. But like my good friend Winnie says, man, if you start running other people's race, you're not gonna make it. And I love I love what you just said about I didn't know that was 25%. Like I didn't know that was 25%.
Yeah.
But you're 100% right. If you slow down to zero, it's almost impossible to start over again.
That part.
And when you start over again, bro, you're starting over from one. Well, you're starting over from zero.
Yeah.
You're not starting over from 25%. You're
Yeah.
starting over from one, and like hills are a lot steeper. When you were talking about all the things that you have to do in life and stuff like that, you got all these things on your plate. I thought about a juggler, and I had a really smart person give me this analogy. He was talking about like life and marriage and stuff like that, but it was really good. He was like, you know how jugglers juggle a lot of things? I was like, how's that? Really smart, man. He said they never keep anything in their hand for too long.
Ooh.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
And it's your career, it's your ministry, it's your job, it's your family, all of that good stuff. You can never keep the thing in your hand for too long. Otherwise, all the other things are gonna fall.
Yep.
So, and it's the same thing. You can't keep those things in the air for too long either.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the thing in your hand is going. So it's always this constant movement, juggling. So, and that was another analogy about you saying the same thing, is that you give everything the attention that it deserves, but not all the time, every time.
Yes.
Can't do it.
Yep. Yeah, my pastor actually says this like a lot. Like he talks about not wanting to be an idol in other people's hearts.
Yeah.
So like the
problem is he's kind of becoming one though.
Yeah, I mean he is already, honestly, but like not on his own volition.
Yeah.
It's just people like raising him to that status. What I love that he does is like some Sundays he just won't preach. You know what I'm saying? And he'll just be like, we're just gonna worship. We're just gonna worship this Sunday. You know what I'm saying? And
that's good.
Like I love that. Like if you hold something in your hand while juggling longer than you should, what you're likely doing is you're either making that thing an idol, or the fact that you are upholding that thing, they are likely to now see you as an idol. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So like if I'm once again just juggling my family, my work, and my family, my job, and my ministry, right? And I put down, let's say I'm like, this is too much to juggle. I'm just gonna hold my family and my job in my hands.
Yeah.
Right. What's gonna happen now is, one, you're foregoing your calling to focus on these two things. Those two things is what you're now putting your purpose in your life into, not what God has told you to be. One, idol. And then two, now your family is likely going to have an overdependence on you, where you should have been missing in certain seasons so that they can find dependence on the only one that could actually sustain them.
That's right.
Now they're going to have an overdependence on you. You've created an idol in their hearts of you.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So
that's
like
right.
In both senses, you kind of got to keep it moving. Otherwise, you run the risk of creating an idol for yourself or for the people that you're supposed to be protecting.
Sometimes as fathers, husbands, fathers, but specifically fathers, sometimes we have a tendency to inadvertently be God to our kids.
Yeah.
And we're not.
Yep.
That's good.
Yeah. And it's also like a matter of like static versus kinetic friction. Like it's always easier to move something that's already moving than to move something that has come to like a full stagnant standstill. And in the same sense, like if you find yourself like juggling and you drop something, or like you put everything down, it's always going to be harder to pick that up and start again than to just keep it going. Yeah.
Bro, you want to know if you ever get stuck on the side of the road, ever.
Okay, hopefully not.
Well, you probably got AAA. Yeah. But for somebody else who ever gets stuck on the side of the road, here's what you don't do. If you want help, you don't sit in the car. You don't sit in the car.
Mm-hmm.
What you do, if you're able, you get out and you start pushing. And even if the car isn't moving, people will see the effort that you're already putting in and say, oh man, let me get out and help.
Facts.
So many times I think we get stuck on the road of life and then we're like, oh man, this sucks. And we just sit in our car and sulk and wonder why nobody will come and save us. When people see you moving, then people want to help.
That part.
It's been proven since the dawn of time. If you want help, start doing.
Facts.
You're man. This is good, man. When are you tripping, bro? This is a good show.
He talked because I didn't want to record today because I wasn't really feeling it. But hey, beautiful wife. Hey. Woo-hoo. All right. Listen, y'all, I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in once again. Please, please, please go ahead and like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff. Make sure that no matter what you do, remember that you are called, chosen, and loved. And just like Gerald's shirt, by the way, that's fire that I just put that two and two together. That merch is going to be dropping soon as well, called, love, and what kept. All right, called, loved, kept. And yeah, keep pushing towards the goal that God has put in front of you, the momentum that God is building. I love you guys. I'll talk to you later. Peace.